Chapter 61, Where Does Destiny Come From? 4. 1. The cave was dark. I didn't rush, allowing my eyes to adjust to the darkness. Feeling like something might jump out at any moment, I remained on high alert, focusing intently. What I feared wasn't beasts or people. Even in complete darkness, I could handle them with my eyes closed. Surely, there wouldn't be a master so powerful that I couldn't handle guarding this cave that no one could find. What I feared were possible poisons or mechanical traps. Like tiny ants with deadly venom, or mechanisms that could launch unexpected attacks. I could handle mechanisms that shot hidden weapons. But what if the ceiling opened and poured down poison? Or if the floor collapsed, dropping me off the cliff? Such mechanisms were installed in important buildings of the Martial Righteous Alliance. At the very least, dozens of hidden weapons would fly out, poison would spray from all directions, and the room would instantly seal itself as poisonous smoke erupted. Fortunately, there were no such mechanisms in this cave. How far had I walked in? Suddenly, the cave widened, revealing a large space. Ah! An exclamation of wonder escaped my lips. The first thought that came to mind was this? How could such a place exist inside a cave? The pond in the center caught my eye. I slowly walked towards it. I didn't know where the water came from, but it was very clear. Moreover, sunlight was streaming in through small holes in the wall. Looking outside through these holes, which were as numerous as arrow holes, I could see the sky. They seemed to be openings on the cliffside. Moss was growing on the cave walls, and unknown plants and flowers were growing here and there. It was an amazing sight that one might only see in dreams, truly worthy of being called a fairyland within a cave. Then, a single flower caught my eye. Just as Song Warren would stand out alone when among people, this flower did the same. It showed a unique presence among the various flowers. An even greater exclamation burst from my lips than when I first saw this space. Ah! I knew exactly what that sun-red flower was. Solar Sedge, 1. Solar Sedge was a high-grade elixir among elixirs, difficult to obtain. It was known as an elixir among elixirs that could instantly grant a martial artist internal energy equivalent to 1 lifetime when consumed. The fact that Solar Sedge is here means. I leaped back swiftly and quickly surveyed the surroundings. I had heard that around Solar Sedge, there's usually a Dark King Serpent guarding it. The Dark King Serpent, too, was a completely black snake from head to tail, not just an ordinary venomous snake, but a guardian spirit protecting the Solar Sedge. Just as light and darkness coexist, the Dark King Serpent was known to live by consuming the essence of the Solar Sedge. When the Solar Sedge dies, the Dark King Serpent dies with it. Moreover, the venom of the Dark King Serpent was so potent that unless one was immune to all poisons, they would die instantly when bitten. It was such a rare snake that even seeing it was difficult, so naturally, no antidote existed. Indeed, a pitch-black snake was coiled in the grass nearby. The Dark King Serpent, having sensed my presence, raised its head. As our eyes met, it flicked its tongue. The poisonous aura it emitted was so strong that I felt dizzy even at a considerable distance. I slowly drew my sword. I was about to kill it instantly with a sword energy strike, but I stopped. Some sense of incongruity made me think that I shouldn't kill it. I stepped back significantly. As I moved away from the Solar Sedge, the Dark King Serpent buried its raised head back into its coils. Suddenly, a question arose in my mind. Why didn't the person who made the figurines kill the Dark King Serpent and consume the Solar Sedge? Why did they go to the trouble of creating a special mechanism in the box to bring someone who sold the secret of the figurines here? I felt that I might be missing something. I went back in. I examined the inner space from as far away as possible without provoking the Dark King Serpent. Then I discovered a passage that looked like a small crevice in one corner of the wall. It was in a place that would be difficult to find unless examined closely. Moreover, if one were distracted by the Solar Sedge and the Dark King Serpent, it would have been impossible to notice. That's it. I thought I should go there first. I didn't know if I could enter that cave without provoking the Dark King Serpent. It seemed possible because it was somewhat distant from where the Dark King Serpent was, but it also seemed like it might rush at me. Killing it would be easy. The problem was getting there without killing it. Is it worth taking the risk? I answered that question by trusting my instincts. I moved slowly, sticking to the wall. Very slowly, persistently. When the Dark King Serpent showed slight reactions, I stopped moving. It was clearly aware of my movements. But because my movements were so slow, it didn't perceive them as a threat. It took nearly an hour to reach the crevice this way. Indeed, there was a passage large enough for an adult to pass through. Going inside, there was another small space. Light was coming in here too, and plants were growing. In one corner, a skeleton was leaning against the wall. A book was placed in front of it. I carefully picked it up. Immortal Crane's Secret Art, 3? Flipping through the secret manual, the first page read. In my later years, I accidentally discovered this place. While enjoying my time here, I had some new insights and wrote down a few words. The contents of the manual were about the martial arts of the figurines. It detailed how to move the vital energy and emit internal force for those 5 techniques. It seems he named it the Immortal Crane's Secret Art after Immortal Crane Peak. On the last page, there was another note left by him. I intended to take the Solar Sedge and the Dark King Serpent, but I discovered that the all-poison neutralizing herb, 4, grows here. It will take several decades for it to bear fruit, so I leave everything for the one who will inherit my martial arts. Even if my insights are not passed on, that too is heaven's will and the law of nature. Indeed, the all-poison neutralizing herb was growing to one side. The all-poison neutralizing herb was a flower that bore fruit once every 100 years. The fruit of the all-poison neutralizing herb was known to be able to neutralize any poison that exists in the world. Ah! Now I could understand everything. When the deceased discovered this place, the all-poison neutralizing herb had not yet borne fruit. He left it for someone in the future to use this all-poison neutralizing herb to consume even the inner core of that Dark King Serpent. It was a choice that an ordinary person could never make. In a normal case, one would kill the Dark King Serpent and consume the Solar Sedge. But the deceased left all of this for a future person who would inherit his martial arts. That was the end of the writing. There was not a single word of common advice about who he was or how to live righteously with this elixir and martial art. Ah! I had exclaimed several times since coming here, but the emotion at this moment was the greatest. I realized what it truly means to empty one's mind and follow the natural order. Thank you so much. I formally bowed to the skeleton. I was curious about who this person was. If it was within the last 100 years, it might be someone I knew. Who could it be? If I properly learned the martial art he left behind, I might be able to get a sense of it. Anyway, that's for later. Now it's time to deal with this precious opportunity given to me. If I kill the Dark King Serpent and eat its inner core, then immediately eat the fruit of the all-poison neutralizing herb, I should be able to absorb the energy of the inner core as internal force. I might gain at least half a lifetime's worth of internal force. Plus the Solar Sedge, which is worth a full lifetime. But I hesitated. I realized that another opportunity had presented itself. The poison-immune body. With the Dark King Serpent and the all-poison neutralizing herb, I could attempt to achieve immunity to all poisons. I would need to consume the inner core and wait until it spread sufficiently throughout my body. I would have to control my internal force with the heavenly martial heart guarding technique and a few necessary incantations, and then eat the fruit of the all-poison neutralizing herb just before the point of death. If I could pull it off, I wouldn't have to worry about poison for the rest of my life. But if I failed, I would die. Should I attempt it without knowing how powerful the Dark King Serpent's poison is? If I fail, my body might never be found. My disappearance would deeply sadden my father, mother, and Guangdu. The reason I was still considering it was that while internal force can be increased anytime, the chance to become immune to all poisons might come only once in a lifetime. My deliberation didn't last long. Discovering the figurines at the black market, finding the map from those figurines, and then coming here to discover all this. All of this came to me like fate. I've always chosen to face such situations head-on. Once I made up my mind, I immediately put it into action. First, I carefully picked the fruit of the all-poison neutralizing herb. With my sword drawn, I quickly exited the passage and walked towards the Dark King Serpent. Hiss. The Dark King Serpent raised its head fiercely. I'm sorry. Let's do something better together. Swish! The Dark King Serpent's head was cut off by my sword. I quickly split open its body and extracted the inner core. Even before consuming it, I felt nauseous and my head was spinning. Please, I beg you. I put the inner core in my mouth, chewed, and swallowed. Instantly, the poison began to spread. It was truly horrific. My mouth and throat felt like they were burning. I endured the pain while exerting the heavenly martial heart guarding technique to its limit. Along with the heavenly martial heart guarding technique, I had to circulate the specified incantations to spread the poison to every corner of my body. If I lost consciousness, it would be over. Ah! I deliberately screamed. I focused on my voice. In an instant, my entire body began to turn black. It felt like my internal organs were melting and my limbs were being severed. No! Eat the all-poison neutralizing herb quickly. Not yet. If you eat it now, you'll fail. Emotion and reason clashed. It was a situation where I couldn't tell which was reason and which was emotion. I endured and endured. I felt the poison spread sufficiently to the tips of my toes. All right, now's the time. I tried to eat the fruit of the all-poison neutralizing herb, but my arms wouldn't move. My body had already left the control of my mind. Ah, this is the end. My consciousness gradually faded. In that final moment, what I recalled was my mother. My mother from my past life. I was eating with my mother. Me in my younger days. I remember this day. It was the day I returned home after a long time, having defeated the Fist King. I was excitedly telling her about it. Mother was smiling at me. Only now do I see. Her snow-white hair, her bent back, her deepened wrinkles. The me back then didn't see it. Because I only thought about myself. Mother raised her chopsticks and fed me some side dishes. Well done, my son. Eat a lot. Eat a lot and stay strong. Mother's words telling me to eat a lot echoed in my ears. My heart swelled, and my fading consciousness returned. I felt tears flowing from my eyes. Yes, I have to eat. I can't die like this. I used my last bit of strength. My body wouldn't move, but I gritted my teeth. I didn't want to die like this. There were too many things I still had to do. The face of my current mother came to mind. You can do it, can't you, son? I remembered the warm embrace as she hugged me with a smile. Then my arm began to move little by little. My trembling hand gradually approached my mouth. Mother! Using my last bit of strength, I put the fruit of the all-poison neutralizing herb in my mouth. I forcibly chewed it. I felt the fruit burst in my mouth. Feeling the heavenly martial heart guarding technique activate, I lost consciousness. How much time had passed? When I opened my eyes again, the pain was gone. I slowly got up. My skin, which had turned black, had returned to its original color. With a tense heart, I examined my internal force. If my internal force had increased even a little, this attempt would be a failure. But the internal force in my dungeon remained the same. Success! I had achieved the poison-immune body. Now, no poison could harm me in the future. It was thanks to both mothers. I felt especially sorry towards my mother from my past life. These days, I was showing filial piety to my new parents that I couldn't fulfill in my past life. Please understand, Mother. Instead, I will become happy. Now, having endured the pain, it's time to receive the reward. I walked over and picked the solar sedge. After washing the dirt off its roots with water from the pond, I chewed and swallowed it. I ate everything, including the red petals. The energy of the elixir spread throughout my body. Perhaps because I had just experienced such terrible pain? I felt better than when consuming any other elixir. Swoosh! The elixir spread throughout my body. I absorbed all the energy while exerting the heavenly martial heart guarding technique. After circulating my vital energy several times, I examined the internal force in my dungeon. I succeeded in absorbing all the internal force equivalent to 1 lifetime. Now, the internal force in my dungeon had reached 1 lifetime and 52 years, approaching 2 lifetimes of internal force. Now I could finally use the 4 initials formula. By this time next year, I would reach 2 lifetimes, and then I would be able to use up to the 5 initials formula. Just thinking about it made my whole body tingle with excitement. Truly, from the moment I discovered the location in the figurine box until now, I never dreamed I would obtain such an amazing opportunity. The Immortal Crane's secret art. The poison-immune body. 1 lifetime's worth of internal force. And that wasn't all I gained. I had gained this cave that no one in the world knows about. I could come here to rest whenever I wanted. It could also serve as a perfect hideout in urgent situations. I buried the deceased, now a skeleton, in a sunny spot inside the secret chamber. May you have attained paradise. Just as he left many things behind without saying much, I too did not say much to him. I would show it through how I live. Ha ha ha. With a laugh of joy that made me feel like I could fly, I walked out of the cave. Chapter 62, Azura Bright King, 1. I stood at the cave exit, looking down. Although it was an endless cliff with no visible way down, I was smiling contentedly. If I blocked off that lower cave I had climbed up through earlier, no one would ever discover this place. I looked up. A rock shaped like a crane's tail was hanging down. From now on, I would enter and exit through that way. I leaped up, soaring into the air. Lightly grasping the edge of the upper rock, I jumped once more. With a flawless movement, I landed on the tail-like rock. Although the rock sloped downward, I didn't lose my balance. I had the confidence that comes with solid internal force. Even if I fell from this cliff now, I wouldn't die. I could use my sword to scrape against the cliff while falling, reducing my speed, then fall again, repeating this process. I had enough internal force to make that possible, and I had the treasure sword Heavenly Creation Sword. In fact, this was a method I used to train intensively in my prime. Although not from a cliff this high, I would jump from incredibly high cliffs. Back then, I truly experienced what it meant for one's heart to tighten, and there's no better training for improving concentration. Walking to the center of the rock, I took out the secret manual from my chest. It was the Immortal Crane secret art I had brought from the secret chamber. Facing the cool breeze, I began to memorize the secret manual there. Since I already knew the movements of the 5 techniques from the figurines, I could understand the content more easily. The Immortal Crane secret art is a martial art that uses the entire body to face opponents. It's a kind of body technique and fighting technique. Of course, fists and feet are central. However, the crucial attacks weren't punching and kicking. Those were rather used as feints to deceive the opponent or for defense, while the actual killing blows came from attacks with the shoulder, knee, or elbow. For instance, striking with the elbow when the opponent expects a punch, or smashing the opponent's body with the shoulder when they anticipate a kick. One might wonder how strong that could be, but with body weight and internal force behind it, that single blow could shatter all the bones in the body. I executed the techniques while moving my vital energy according to the secret manual. Bang! Pa-bang! Bang! As internal force was imbued into each move, the movements came alive. After performing the 5 techniques in succession, I felt that this was no ordinary martial art. It was a level above the peerless Wind God's Fist I had learned from the Fist King's secret manual before. Although it consisted of only 5 techniques, it was a martial art with a well-balanced offense, and one that became more powerful the more it was practiced, an extremely progressive martial art. Of course, the power of a martial art varies greatly depending on who learns it and how well they master it. But there's certainly an objective level. The Immortal Crane secret art was a martial art comparable to the soul-chasing Azura sword arts I had learned. I could feel that a great master of martial arts had poured his late-life insights fully into these 5 techniques. What kind of deceased person left behind this martial art? I became curious once again. Previously, I had gained some insight because of number 7 in the carriage. After that, I had been feeling the need to learn a martial art that didn't match with sword techniques, and now I had obtained a martial art that fit perfectly. After repeating and memorizing it several times, I burned the secret manual. Peerless secret manuals always bring trouble, and when the time comes to pass it on to someone else, I can write it down again. There was one thing I shouldn't forget. All of this serendipity was possible because of the sacrifice of the deceased who selflessly abandoned his own desires for future generations. Oh deceased one, I don't know what you wished for. But I think what I intend to do isn't far from what you might have hoped for. Please watch over me from now on. As I was coming down from the summit, I stood in front of the small cave I had discovered earlier. I slowly drew my sword. The internal force in my dungeon, approaching 2 lifetimes' worth, stirred. Whoom! As I injected my internal force, the Heavenly Creation Sword vibrated. As the sword cut through the air, a stream of sword energy was emitted with a soft wind-like sound. Swoosh! The next moment, the flying sword energy suddenly split. Like a falling comet breaking into pieces, the sword energy divided. Chwak! The split sword energy rapidly divided again. Chwak! Chwak! 2 became 4, 4 became 8, 8 became 16. In an instant, the sword energy, split into 16 strands, rained down around the cave entrance like a shower. Rumble! Rumble! The cave collapsed completely. The power didn't decrease just because the sword energy split. It was as if 16 strands of sword energy with the original power flew simultaneously. Moreover, they didn't just fly in a fixed direction, but I could direct them where I wanted. Think about it. How could anyone possibly block 16 strands of strong energy flying towards their vital points all at once? This is the fourth initial technique, soul-stealing fear. This was why I had worked so hard to reach one lifetime's worth of internal force. The only weakness of the fourth initial technique was one thing, because it's a martial art that no one else can imitate, it can be recognized as my technique. The area, now that the dust had settled, looked as if a landslide had occurred and the mountain had collapsed. Now, no one will accidentally find the way to the mysterious cave. The only way to get there is to jump down from under the tail of Immortal Crane Peak. Since no one who climbs to the summit would do such a thing, the secret chamber has become a space known only to me. Even if I were to teach someone how to enter, there aren't many people in the world with the lightness skill to jump from that overhanging cliff and fly into the entrance. Coming down the mountain, I bid farewell to the innkeeper. The scenery was truly exceptional. I'm glad you were satisfied. Thanks to you, I had a good rest. Please visit often. I will. Although the innkeeper's words were the usual farewell to a guest, I would probably come often. Of course, I wouldn't need to stay at this inn. After leaving the inn, I headed not towards home, but to Wuhan, where the Martial Righteous Alliance headquarters was located. A man entered the office of Sima Qian, the commander-in-chief of the Martial Righteous Alliance. The man's name was Cho Byok, 1. He was Sima Qian's right-hand man, the very one who had previously received a secret order to find Qian Hajin's Azura Bright King sword. How did it go? Cho Byok answered Sima Qian's question. We secretly searched around Gal Sarayang, but couldn't find the Azura Bright King sword. Sima Qian frowned. It seems he hid it very well. It appears so. Sima Qian clearly believed that Gal Sarayang had embezzled the sword. Unlike other swords, the Azura Bright King sword was worth finding by any means. He had a long-standing relationship with Ma Bongjie. He had done many things for the Heavenly Blade sect. But such a past doesn't guarantee the position of Commander-in-Chief. Since he was chosen as Commander-in-Chief, he needed to show some ability. Cho Byok carefully said. But there's one thing that bothers me. What is it? With the change of the Alliance leader, the Alliance Protection Regiment leader also changed. That's right. Could he possibly have it? Since the Alliance Protection Regiment leader is responsible for guarding the Alliance leader, it was reasonable to have such suspicions. Sima Qian had already considered this. But he didn't think the Alliance Protection Regiment leader had taken the sword. When he read the report about Baek Pyo, he didn't seem like someone who would do such a thing. He was very loyal to Qian Hajin. Such a person wouldn't have stolen the Alliance leader's possession. What if Gal Sarayang entrusted the sword to him? Gal Sarayang? Sima Qian tilted his head. Were they that close? I know their relationship wasn't bad. Sima Qian soon shook his head. He wouldn't have entrusted the Azura Bright King sword to someone else, even if it were another item. He must have hidden it somewhere we can't find. The value of the Azura Bright King sword was immeasurable in terms of money. For Sima Qian, it was unimaginable to entrust something so precious to someone else. Still, you never know. There were odd people in the world that he could never understand. Where is he now? Upon arriving in Wuhan, I first stopped by the Wind Tavern. Since I had come all the way to Hubei, I wanted to see Gal Sarayang and Baek Pyo, and also learn about the current situation in the Martial Righteous Alliance. Baek Pyo recognized me. Didn't you come once before? That's right. You have a good memory. I can't forget. You were my first customer. Didn't you drink at that seat? I remember when I first came, I ordered the same drink and side dishes I used to have when I was the Alliance leader, sitting in the same seat. I recall Baek Pyo's surprised and moved expression. Yes, that's correct. Ha ha, welcome. Please have a seat. I sat in the same place as last time. Then my eyes caught sight of wooden shield and sword decorations hanging on the wall. The interior has changed. I made those to pass the time. They're very nice. Thank you for the kind words. Seeing Baek Pyo again made me feel at ease. I even felt a sudden desire to take him to Shandong. How's business? Ha ha, it's enough to make ends meet. Do you have a family? Yes. I have a wife and a son. That must be nice. Then Baekpyo lowered his voice and said, Be careful. About what? I heard there's a saying, keep your eyes wide open before marriage, and half closed after marriage. Ah, that's what I told Baekpyo before he got married. Who would have thought I'd hear these words from Baekpyo again? It means to choose your partner carefully. Baekpyo winked at me. I smiled and asked, Do you regret getting married? Not at all. I'm very happy. Among the martial righteous alliance warriors I knew, Baekpyo was the most family-oriented. He truly loved his wife and child. What would you like to drink and eat? Please give me the same as last time. Do you remember? Of course. After Baekpyo brought the drink and some simple side dishes, he started preparing the main dish. After watching him for a while, I suddenly asked, Are you happy? Baekpyo stopped chopping for a moment and looked at me. Yes, there probably weren't many customers who asked such questions. He must be a bit surprised and flustered. Baekpyo smiled and said, Yes, I'm happy. I couldn't tell if he was truly happy or just saying so, but Baekpyo looked happy. At that moment, someone entered the Wind Tavern. The man who entered without hiding his cold aura was Cho Byok. Cho Byok glanced at me. Since I usually thoroughly concealed my aura, I would probably look like an insignificant customer to his eyes. Soon after, another person entered. I was shocked when I confirmed who it was. It was Sima Cheon. Of course, I knew Sima Cheon's face, and so did Baekpyo. Commander-in-Chief. You recognize me? Of course. You may not remember, but I've met you a few times before. Oh, is that so? What brings you here? Ah, please have a seat first. Sima Cheon sat down. I heard you opened a tavern here while passing by chance, so I dropped in. Ah, I see. Give me some alcohol. Yes. With a flustered look, Baekpyo hurriedly prepared alcohol and side dishes. I was more nervous than Baekpyo. Sima Cheon dropped by while passing by chance? He cares about someone who has already left the Martial Righteous Alliance? Nonsense. He's a person who thoroughly looks after his own interests. He might take care of a dog raised by the Martial Righteous Alliance, but he's not someone who cares about people who have left. Then? He came with some purpose. What could it be? Sima Cheon casually asked Baekpyo, who brought the alcohol. Have you met former Commander-in-Chief Gal? He visited once. Oh? He came here. Yes. He gave me an opening gift. You two must have been close. Yes, we were close. Baekpyo answered honestly without lying. That's right, Baekpyo. You're doing well. Never lie about things that will be revealed if investigated. Lies should be inserted in the tiny gap between truths and truths. Like cartilage between bones. Just as everyone forgets the existence of cartilage because they only see flesh and feel bone, that's how lies should be told. Sima Cheon asked various questions. Why did you want to do this work? How many customers do you have in a day? Do you have any thoughts of returning? He asked questions that someone visiting for the first time might naturally ask. After chatting for about an hour, he stood up. I'm busy today, so I should get going now. Thank you so much for coming. Please take care. As Sima Cheon was about to leave, he abruptly asked, By the way, didn't Commander Gal leave anything with you? It was truly a sudden question, so sudden it could be called an ambush. Baekpyo calmly answered. He didn't leave anything with me. Sima Cheon, who had been staring intently at Baekpyo, smiled. Do well with your business. The alcohol taste is very good. Sima Cheon and Cho Byok left the Wind Tavern. My heart had already cooled down. I couldn't tell if Sima Cheon had noticed something just now. Anyway, that doesn't matter. The fact that he came here means that Baekpyo is already involved in the incident. I want Baekpyo to live happily. Even if I can't make him my person, if he's happy, I don't intend to bring him along. Being such a person, I absolutely didn't want Baekpyo to be caught up in these filthy power struggles. Although I don't know what Sima Cheon came looking for, I should handle this matter and leave for Baekpyo's sake. After emptying the last cup, I said with a smile. The alcohol tastes so good, I'll have to come again tomorrow. Chapter 63, Azura Bright King, 2. Only after returning to his office did Sima Qian finally reveal his thoughts. That Baekpyo is exactly the kind of person I expected. Cho Biok carefully responded to his words. Do you mean you don't think he received the sword from Gal Sarayang? At first, that's what I thought. But? Sima Qian paused for a moment before speaking softly. When I suddenly asked him at the end, he was too calm. Of course, having led the Alliance Protection Regiment for a long time, he'd naturally be calm in all situations. But that calmness just now was, how should I put it, a bit different. It was a calmness as if he had practiced for such a moment. As expected, you're sharp. But Sima Qian soon tilted his head. It's strange. If he's hiding such a precious sword, why is he lingering around the martial righteous alliance? Why not leave for somewhere far away? Sima Qian would never understand. He couldn't comprehend Baekpyo's heart, who missed Cheon Hajin so much that he had to leave the Alliance Protection Regiment, yet couldn't bring himself to leave far from the martial righteous alliance. He must have some ulterior motive. Cho Biok was the one who initially suspected Baekpyo. Since nothing came up from investigating Gal Sarayang, he naturally hoped the sword was with Baekpyo. That would prove he hadn't investigated wrongly. It's worth investigating. I'll handle it. How? Cho Biok thought that the sword could never be found by ordinary methods. The target was the former Alliance Protection Regiment leader, and what they were looking for was the Azura Bright King sword. It might be better if you don't know the method. He meant he would handle it personally. It also meant he would take responsibility if any problems arose. You do know, right? That he was the Martial Righteous Alliance's top guard. Of course. Only after warning him to be careful did he entrust him with the task. All right, I'll leave this matter to you. After Cho Biok left, Sima Qian walked to the window. Coincidentally, Gal Sarayang was walking towards this direction, carrying a pile of books and documents. He was still working despite the late hour. Sima Qian stared at him expressionlessly. At that moment, Gal Sarayang looked this way and bowed politely. You haven't gone to bed yet. Sima Qian was now wearing a gentle expression, like an actor on stage. You're working hard at such a late hour. Sima Qian smiled shamelessly, knowing full well that Gal Sarayang was struggling because of the excessive work he had assigned. I must be getting old, my work efficiency seems to be declining. Well then, please get some rest. Gal Sarayang bowed once more before continuing on his way. He felt the cold gaze from behind. Although his back was turned, Gal Sarayang didn't even show a small sneer. He knew he was under surveillance. For now, he had to be cautious, so he was acting perfectly like a defeated person. He knew well that Sima Qian still didn't trust him. But someday, he would trust him. Then, he would think he had truly subdued him. But from that moment, the counterattack would begin. Does that mean he's just wasting time helplessly waiting for that day? Not at all. He had already activated his secret network. He had spent his entire life in the Martial Righteous Alliance, with a long period as the Commander-in-Chief. There were many subordinates who would risk their lives for his orders, not the Martial Righteous Alliances. Most of them were spies. They had infiltrated important positions not only within the Martial Righteous Alliance but also in various organizations throughout the Central Plains. They would help him. His target wasn't Sima Qian. His goal was Ma Bongji behind him, and someone even further behind. Since Ma Bongji's inauguration, he had secretly observed and investigated Ma Bongji as the new alliance leader. His conclusion was this: there was someone else behind the scenes. Judging from Ma Bongji's actions as alliance leader, it definitely wasn't his own initiative. I don't know how you killed the alliance leader, but I will certainly uncover it and take revenge. Even if it takes 10 years or 20 years. He would do anything for that day. I rented a room at an inn not far from Baekpyo's tavern. The first task was to find out what Sima Qian was looking for. If Baekpyo had it, he was in a very dangerous situation. Earlier, Sima Qian had asked if Gal Sarayang had left anything with him. Was he looking for Gal Sarayang's possession? Or was it my possession? Seeing that Sima Qian moved in person, it must not be an ordinary item. What could be so important? I couldn't know about Gal Sarayang's possessions, so I started thinking about my own. Since I didn't usually collect or decorate things, there wasn't anything particularly important. I didn't have jewels like the Night Luminous Pearl, nor did I have any elixirs or treasure clothes. After all, wasn't I someone who had lived relying on just one sword all my life? The next moment, I was startled as I thought of one item. Could it be? I stood up abruptly without realizing it. The Azura Bright King sword? Suddenly, I recalled a conversation with Gal Sarayang from about a decade ago. Alliance leader, you always use only the Azura Bright King sword. Even though there are many treasure swords in the Alliance's vault, you try them for a few months and then send them back, don't you? Did I do that? The fact that you're not even aware of it means you cherish the Azura Bright King sword that much. Having carried it for so long, it now feels like a part of me. If I die, make sure to take good care of this sword and give it to someone worthy of it. Please don't say such things, even in jest. That's something for decades in the future. Ha ha. My friend, I'm already over 60 years old. Ah, I thought that he might have really taken the Azura Bright King sword. If that's the case, Sima Qian won't give up easily. Then, another scene naturally came to mind. The sword and shield decorations hanging on the wall of the Wind Tavern. Good heavens! When I first saw them, I thought he had made them just to decorate the tavern. But I had never seen Baekpyo carving anything in my past life. I had never heard that he had such a hobby. Could he have hidden the Azura Bright King sword inside that decoration? The next day, after retrieving 10,000 Niang from the bank, I went to find an information broker. Since this was where the Martial Righteous Alliance headquarters was located, there were many information organizations in Wuhan. Information organizations were no longer operating secretly as before, but were competing legally, so you could find information brokers' signboards all over the marketplace. The place I went to was the Wuhan branch of the Heaven's Net Association. The tavern called Bulayu, where I had gone to look for Gal Sarayang before, was run by the head of the Heaven's Net Association. Of course, that place was where the association head was, and the Wuhan branch of the Heaven's Net Association was in a different location. The information I requested there was about the man who had accompanied Sima Qian. From what I saw yesterday, he wasn't an ordinary guard. Sima Qian had brought only one person with him to the Wind Tavern. In other words, he was a trusted person that Sima Qian took on secret outings. I expected that Sima Qian would assign him to handle this matter. Even if not, it wasn't a bad investment. It would be good to know what kind of person was the right-hand man of Sima Qian, the commander-in-chief of the Martial Righteous Alliance. If it were investigating Sima Qian directly, it would be a very delicate matter, but investigating his subordinate wasn't much of a problem. Various organizations within the Martial Righteous Alliance collected such information to keep each other in check anyway. The information fee for the man was 3,000 Niang. It wasn't a small amount for information on a single warrior. It was probably priced several times higher because he was the right-hand man of the commander-in-chief. After placing the request with the information broker, I headed to the Wind Tavern. When I arrived, Baekpyo was just opening the doors. You really came again. Oh, I came too early, didn't I? Not at all. I was just about to open. Please come in. Please understand. I couldn't sleep because I couldn't forget the taste of the wind-flavored alcohol here. Ha ha. It's the first time I've heard someone say our alcohol tastes like wind. How could alcohol taste like wind? It's just that when I look at Baekpyo, I feel like I'm standing in a wide plain, facing the wind. Come on in. At that moment, I saw Baekpyo casually remove a small container about the size of a palm hanging in front of the door. I pretended not to see, but I knew what it was. It was an insect called the night-crying bug, mainly used by the Alliance Protection Regiment. It's an insect that's only awake at night, and it cries when someone approaches. It's mainly used for nighttime security, one of the excellent methods for guarding against nighttime intrusions. I went inside and sat in the same seat as always. It's a bit messy because I just opened. I should be the one apologizing. If I had customers like you all the time, I'd become rich soon. Then I should come every day to make you rich. Ha ha ha. Baekpyo laughed happily. Then please sit for a moment. Don't mind me. I'll just sit here and enjoy the scenery outside. As you wish. The scenery here was truly beautiful. Beyond the reed swaying in the wind, the river sparkled in the setting sun. It's a place that naturally makes you want to live here. I thought that maybe Baekpyo had been dreaming of running such a tavern in a place like this while carrying out his difficult and challenging guard duties. If so, this place must be Baekpyo's someday refuge. Where is your family? Baekpyo answered my question. There's a house attached to the tavern right behind. My wife can't help with the work yet because our child is still young. Ah, I see. In truth, I'm not too worried about Baekpyo. I was probably the only person who knew his true capabilities. People don't know how strong he really is. There's a saying in the martial world, if you want to live long, don't reveal all your strength and keep some hidden. Those who follow this saying best are probably the guard warriors. By nature, they extremely dislike standing out. Baekpyo was one such person. He's a skilled warrior who once fended off the combined attack of the Dark Heavens Palace's 7 demonic heretics. You might think the 7 demonic heretics are just 7 villains from some evil sect, but that's not the case. The 7 demonic heretics were beings who truly showed what it means to be eerie, using all sorts of evil arts and illusions. No, they were women. You don't know how many righteous masters fell to their hands. He was the one who blocked their combined attack. Of course, I stepped in right after finishing another fight and eliminated all the 7 demonic heretics, but Baekpyo had held off their combined attack for over 700 breaths. What I'm worried about is his family. The stronger Baekpyo is, the more those villains will try to strike at his weaknesses. Despicable people always commit unthinkable acts without hesitation. What they do is always similar. My gaze naturally turned to the decoration hanging on the wall. In my past life, I had communed with the Azura Bright King sword. When you've been together for a long time, a famous sword recognizes its master. Of course, that doesn't mean the sword has any emotions. It literally recognizes me and understands my emotions. Whether I'm angry, and if so, how much. The sword also becomes angry accordingly. When the sword and emotions align like this, attacks become even more powerful. In the past, if I emitted energy to the Azura Bright King's sword, it would respond. But I didn't know if it could recognize my energy now that my body had changed due to the wall-shattering pill. It seemed like it might recognize me since the heavenly martial heart guarding technique remained the same, but I couldn't be sure without testing it. When Baekpyo went out to the back to throw away some trash, I quickly approached the decoration. I extended my hand and sent energy to the wooden sword. I sent only a tiny amount of energy. The next moment, the wooden sword vibrated slightly in response. I could tell. It really is the Azura Bright King's sword. He had hidden the Azura Bright King's sword inside the wooden sword. I couldn't believe it. It was so absurd and ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh. How on earth did Baekpyo think of hiding this sword in such an exposed place? Well, in a way, I could understand. He must have considered it more precious than his life. He would have been worried about entrusting it to someone else, of course, and even about burying it somewhere. He must have decided to keep it where he could watch over it all day. The enemy is formidable. Baekpyo will try to protect the sword with his life. How should I resolve this? Chapter 64, Azura Bright King, 3. The next day, I received information about the man who had escorted Sima Cheon from the Wuhan branch of the Heaven's Net Association. The man's name was Cho Byok. Originally a wandering expert, he had caught Sima Cheon's eye and had been his right-hand man for many years after being selected. I could tell that he had been involved in various illegal activities, including assassinations, but each time he had escaped charges under the protection of the Heavenly Blade sect. In other words, this was a passage that showed Sima Cheon and the Heavenly Blade sect had been closely connected for a long time. There were various other miscellaneous pieces of information, but the most notable one was this. There were 3 swordsmen who had been following Cho Byok since his wandering days long ago, and they were called the 3 Shadows, 1, because they followed him like shadows. I thought that if Cho Byok was going to handle this matter, he would definitely call them. I requested information about the 3 Shadows from the Heaven's Net Association again. I said I didn't need their skills or past, but only wanted to know where they were and their movements. I asked them to let me know as quickly as possible. To get information faster than the set time, you have to pay double. But I didn't spare any money. Because it was related to Baekpyo, I wouldn't mind even if I spent all my money. This matter needs to be handled carefully. Sima Cheon is at the center of the Martial Righteous Alliance. It's not something to get entangled with them from the start. Today too, Baekpyo welcomed me warmly. You've come again. Didn't I say I'd make you rich? Ha ha. I should open a branch in the marketplace. I felt the need to get closer to Baekpyo, both for this matter and for the future. I revealed everything about myself to him as it was. That I was the heir of the Biok clan sword manor in Shandong province and was traveling the martial world to broaden my horizons. It was groundwork for later, as I might take him to Shandong someday. The most important thing in relationships is trust. If you start with deception, no explanation can erase the uneasy feeling. This matter was not only about getting him out of danger but also a very important opportunity for him and Biok Aridan to build a friendship. Young Master Biok's age is the prime of life. Baekpyo seemed to envy this youth. Aren't you still young too, owner? Ha ha, my youth ended long ago. I think the heart is more important than age. I suppose so. I feel like I'm being tactless, talking about age when I'm so young. Not at all. Young Master Biok has aspects that don't seem young. Are you saying I look old? Baekpyo waved his hands in panic. That's not what I meant. How should I put it? Young Master Biok has something different about you. Of course, that's right. With the feelings I have for you. Baekpyo. I'm forcibly restraining myself from shouting and running to hug you right now. Is that a compliment? Of course. Well, I should have a pleasant drink today too. Come, bring me some alcohol. In the evening, several guests came. I watched carefully to see if there were any dangerous individuals, but they were all ordinary customers. Today too, I drank until late and returned to the inn. The next day, I was able to receive information about the three shadows through the Heaven's Net Association. The news was that they were coming to Wuhan. I could tell that my prediction was correct. The fact that they were suddenly coming to Wuhan from other regions meant that Cho Biok had been assigned this task. The three shadows had even worse records than Cho Biok. It was natural. They were probably the actual henchmen who carried out the deeds. I felt anger rising towards Sima Cheon and Cho Biok. They're bringing in such filthy individuals to handle this matter? But I soon calmed my mind. The martial world is teeming with scum. What's important now isn't anger, but a clean resolution for Baekpyo's sake. The estimated time for them to arrive in Wuhan was 5 days. It was both long and short, and I had to resolve this issue within that time. If I fail to do so and they arrive here, I'll end up having to eliminate them all. While that wouldn't be difficult, the problem is that Baekpyo would likely be blamed for it. After leaving the Heaven's Net Association branch, I walked through the marketplace, lost in thought. In my past life, when I had something to ponder, walking like this often led to good ideas and solutions. How nice it would be if Gal Sarayan were here at times like this. I recalled a conversation I once had with him. How are you so smart? You flatter me. No need to be so modest. The more complex and difficult a problem is, the simpler the answer often is. You know what? Such words only mock people like us more. The simple answer you see is completely invisible to our eyes. What if the answer to this problem is also simple? The problem is that Sima Cheon wants to get the Azura Bright King sword. He suspects Baekpyo has it, and it actually is with Baekpyo. The solution to the problem is to let them know that Baekpyo doesn't have the Azura Bright King sword. How? That wasn't the only problem. Even if we luckily get through this situation, Sima Cheon will again suspect Gal Sarayang. The Azura Bright King sword was too precious for him to simply give up. Then a thought flashed through my mind. What if we make them believe that the Azura Bright King sword disappeared in the first place? What if it's known that I, the former alliance leader, got rid of it before I died? I stood on the street, lost in thought for a long time. How long had I been like that? I started moving again. Not with the troubled steps from earlier, but with strong strides. Ban Seojong, too, the head of the Heaven's Net Association, was silently looking down at the tea placed in front of her. The tavern where she was sitting was Bulayu, the very place where Biok Aridan had come looking for Gal Sarayang before. Do you have something on your mind? An old woman in an apron approached her from the kitchen. The old woman was Elder Bing, 3, her personal guard and an elder of the Heaven's Net Association. Elder Bing had taken care of Ban Seojong since she was young, so their relationship was closer to that of grandmother and granddaughter rather than association head and elder. She could tell what Ban Seojong was thinking just by looking at her expression. I received a message from the Martial Righteous Alliance asking to meet. Ma Bongjia? What does that ugly old decrepit want? Elder Bing knew Ma Bongjia well. She particularly disliked Ma Bongjia, who had been involved in all sorts of scandals since his youth. It's not from Ma Bongjia, but from Sima Cheon. It seems he sent separate messages to Ghost Eye Valley and Omniscient Association as well. Is he trying to tame them one by one? It seems so. How insolent. The leader and the commander, birds of a feather flocking together. I'm really worried about the future of this martial world. Elder Bing clicked her tongue, looking displeased. The Heaven's Net Association, along with Ghost Eye Valley and Omniscient Association, were the three major information organizations of the martial world. In other words, they were among the most powerful organizations holding the information of the martial world. During Cheon Ha-jin's time, they wouldn't have been summoned to the Martial Righteous Alliance with such a one-sided notification. They naturally met with the Commander-in-Chief after a long-standing friendship with the Righteous Thought Pavilion. The process was very courteous and respectful. Compared to that, this one-sided notification now was truly rude behavior. A hint of nostalgia flashed in Ban Seojong's eyes as she looked down at the half-filled teacup. Have you heard any news about that person? Ban Seojong raised her head with an expression asking who she meant. But she knew who Elder Bing was talking about, so she was slightly flustered. Elder Bing pretended not to notice and said, I mean the former Commander-in-Chief. I heard he was demoted to an ordinary soldier. She spoke as if that was all she knew, but she knew much more. She knew that he was being harassed by Sima Cheon, and even that Sima Cheon was looking for the Azura Bright King sword. She was on high alert regarding matters related to the Righteous Thought Pavilion. He will endure well. He's always been a strong person. She had sensed that Gal Sarayang liked her for a long time. She didn't dislike it. But Gal Sarayang had never expressed his feelings. If he had confessed that he liked her, would the current situation be different? She thought that maybe it would. Elder Bing had noticed that the two had mutual feelings for each other. How frustrating! But she couldn't interfere in the love affairs of grown adults. At that moment, one of her subordinates entered, disguised as a customer. The subordinate ordered tea and whispered quietly. It seems you need to go to the branch office right away. About an hour after waiting at the Wuhan branch of the Heaven's Net Association, a new person appeared behind the drooping curtain. I could tell who the newcomer was. It must be the head of the Heaven's Net Association. I heard you came to sell some very valuable information. The calm voice from behind was different from usual, disguised, but I could tell she was the head of the Heaven's Net Association. But she didn't recognize me. I had changed not only my face with a new human skin mask but also my voice. That's right. Information organizations mostly sell information, but they also buy it. Of course, this was limited to very large and important information. You say it's a writing left by the former alliance leader. That's right. It's a writing that hasn't been revealed anywhere. That was the reason she had appeared here in person. I took out a piece of paper. It's a writing left by the former alliance leader, Cheon Ha-jin. How do you know it's Cheon Ha-jin's? You should be able to recognize the handwriting. Can you let us verify it? Of course. Then an old man entered. I folded the paper to show only the first few lines. The old man compared the handwriting of my paper with a letter he had brought, using a magnifying glass. After examining it for a while, the old man looked towards the curtain and nodded once. It meant it was Cheon Ha-jin's handwriting. Of course it was. The writing on the paper was something I had written myself and brought. I had even paid attention to the paper and ink to make it look like it wasn't freshly written. I need to see it myself to determine how valuable it is. Would that be all right? Fine. I trust the reputation of the Heaven's Net Association. Surely, the Heaven's Net Association wouldn't steal a client's information. You don't need to worry. I gave the paper to the old man. He received it and passed it through the curtain. I could sense the woman behind the curtain being startled. I had written a few things about martial arts on the paper. It wasn't particularly important content, but I had written just a bit about the soul-chasing Azura sword technique that only I would know, to make it clear that I had written this. The crucial part was this. I have not reached the state of Realm of the Mind Sword, which has been the goal of my life. Now, I am going to try to challenge the Realm of the Mind Sword anew by getting rid of the Azura Bright King sword, which has been my unique weapon and lifelong friend. I only hope that this challenge of mine will bear fruit. The reason I'm leaving this writing is that today will be a turning point in my martial arts life. I had written that I had gotten rid of the Azura Bright King sword. I knew that Gal Sarayang had feelings for her. That's why I had visited the tavern she ran last time. I hope there was more emotional exchange than I thought. If so, she would also know that Gal Sarayang was under suspicion because of the Azura Bright King sword. The head of the Heaven's Net Association would know that much information. Moreover, if it's about someone she's interested in, even more certainly. If so, this information could save Gal Sarayang from danger. What if she leaks this information to Sima Qion? The head of the Heaven's Net Association will handle how and where this was discovered. Once the information entered their hands, it was now the Heaven's Net Association's information. Even if she doesn't move as I want, it doesn't matter. I plan to leak this information directly to Sima Qion's side after waiting for a day or two. I'll say that information related to the sword has entered the Heaven's Net Association. Then Sima Qion will move personally to find out about this information. How much will you buy this information for? As if there was a set price, the answer came quickly. Let's buy it for 10,000 Niang. She didn't ask where I got this. That was like an unwritten rule among those who deal in information. Honestly, I didn't want to receive money from her. Rather, it was something I would have paid to do. But I couldn't raise suspicion here. Give me 15,000 Niang. The value of this information is 10,000 Niang. I tried to raise the price several times, but was repeatedly refused. Finally, I backed down with a reluctant expression. Fine. I'll sell it for 10,000 Niang. Thank you for compromising. A moment later, a man came and handed me the money. Like the transactions at the black market, the transaction here was also done with untraceable small denomination notes. The woman behind the curtain had already disappeared. I didn't know what she would do. I just hoped that content would flow to Sima Qion. From Sima Qion's perspective, he might be suspicious if this information comes in at this time. But as long as what's written there is in the Alliance leader's own handwriting, he'll have to accept the fact that the Azura Bright King sword no longer exists in this world. If that happens, Sima Qion will give up on the sword, and Baekpyo will no longer be troubled by this matter. There could be unforeseen loopholes, and the result was uncertain, but this was the best method I could think of. I just hoped luck would be on my side. Although Heaven's Net is wide and loose, I hope it doesn't miss anything. Chapter 65, Azura Bright King, 4. Ban Seojong was guided to a well-furnished guest room deep within the Martial Righteous Alliance's inner courtyard. Elder Bing, who had accompanied her, couldn't enter this far and had to wait outside for her. The person waiting in the guest room was Sima Qion. Welcome, Head Ban. It's an honor to meet you, Commander Sima. Please, have a seat. A table with alcohol was already set up. It could be considered rude to prepare alcohol in advance for a first meeting, especially knowing the guest was a woman. Regardless of gender, for an official first meeting, it was customary to start with tea and then ask if the guest would like some alcohol. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. Not at all. It's only natural that I should come and pay my respects. Ha ha, I feel much more at ease hearing you say that. Here, have a drink. She could happily have a drink at a first meeting if the other person was good, even as a woman. As someone living in the martial world, she had long since moved past gender distinctions. But she knew Sima Qion in front of her better than anyone else. He was a figure who had been involved in all sorts of corrupt activities while attached to the Heavenly Blade sect faction. He wasn't suited for the high position of Martial Righteous Alliance Commander-in-Chief, nor did he have the ability for it. He was more of a politician skilled in scheming rather than a military commander. Regardless of her inner thoughts, Ban Seojong's expression showed no sign of discomfort. Her tactic was to maintain a smile, especially towards unfavorable individuals. With good people, one could convey emotions as they were. If angry, one could say why they were angry. At least they wouldn't misinterpret it and hold a grudge. But honestly revealing one's emotions to someone considered an enemy is truly foolish. Especially if it's anger. It might feel like venting at the moment, but in the end, it only hurts oneself. At that moment, someone entered. You called for me. The person who arrived at Sima Qion's call was Gal Sarayang. Gal Sarayang was startled to see Ban Seojong there. Ban Seojong was equally surprised. She never dreamed she would see Gal Sarayang here. Ah, come to think of it, you two must know each other. He pretended as if he hadn't known when he called. But both Gal Sarayang and Ban Seojong could sense that Sima Qion had intentionally orchestrated this meeting. It's been a long time. Have you been well? As Ban Seojong greeted him first, Gal Sarayang also bowed politely. Yes. I've been well, thanks to you. Ban Seojong felt a sad emotion in that response. To her, it sounded like, how could I be well after losing my lord? Gal Sarayang handed the documents he had brought to Sima Cheon. Here are the documents you requested. Ha ha, thank you. Since you're here, have a drink before you go. I'm still on duty, so I'll accept it in spirit. Then, I'll take my leave. You've worked hard. Sima Cheon didn't realize there were subtle emotions between the two. The reason he called Gal Sarayang to this meeting today was to humiliate him in front of her. It would be sufficiently humiliating just to show him doing miscellaneous errands as a mere soldier now. Sima Cheon was constantly trying to destroy Gal Sarayang's spirit and bring him to rock bottom. He was enjoying this vicious hobby. Gal Sarayang left the room. Before the door closed completely, Sima Cheon said, he was truly a capable person. He deliberately used the past tense for Gal Sarayang to hear, and at the same time, it was a way to gauge Ban Seojong's attitude towards him. Ban Seojong smiled and said, there are many capable people in the martial world. But there aren't many that the times demand. Although it wasn't sincere, to Sima Cheon's ears, it sounded like sweet words implying that he was the one the times demanded. Sima Cheon smiled contentedly. Yes, this is the taste. This was the taste of power. If he weren't the commander-in-chief, how could he drink alcohol served by the head of the Heavens Net Association, and how could he hear such sweet words sweeter than alcohol? Before becoming the Martial Righteous Alliance commander-in-chief, he wouldn't have even been able to meet the head of the Heavens Net Association easily. He was thoroughly enjoying the rewards of diligently cleaning the Heavenly Blade sects behind. Of course, he was also working hard not to fall from this position. Various conversations were exchanged, and it was time for her to leave. Then, I'll see you next time. Let's do that. Before standing up, Ban Seojong took something out from her bosom. This is information that recently came into our association. I brought it as a gift to commemorate our meeting today, Commander. Sima Cheon unfolded it and read. After reading the contents, Sima Cheon was shocked. Is this really a writing left by the former alliance leader? Yes. We have already confirmed that it's in his handwriting. How did you obtain this writing? Ban Seojong smiled and said, as you well know, information in the martial world flows naturally like the laws of nature. Just as no one asks how summer came, it's the same. Sima Cheon couldn't ask further. He knew well that it was an unwritten rule not to ask about the source of information among information organizations. Moreover, this information was brought as a gift. In fact, Ban Seojong had been contemplating whether to leak this information or not. It seemed better to leak it for Gal Sarayang's sake, but given the nature of the matter, there were various burdens. However, after seeing Sima Cheon call Gal Sarayang here to humiliate him, she decided to leak the information. She left the guest room first, and Sima Cheon also hurriedly left the place. Something is suspicious. Cho Byok, who had rushed at Sima Cheon's call, immediately expressed doubt after hearing about the conversation with Ban Seojong. Moreover, the timing is too coincidental. Wasn't it confirmed to be written by the alliance leader himself? Handwriting can be forged. There was content about the soul-chasing Azura sword arts that only the alliance leader would know. How do you explain that? That also means it can't be accurately verified unless it's the alliance leader himself. Let's wait for now. Our side is also analyzing the handwriting. He had entrusted it to the most skilled analyst in the Martial Righteous Alliance. If, as you suspect, it's forged, does that mean the head of the Heavens Net Association is opposing me? He still couldn't understand. Opposing him meant opposing the Martial Righteous Alliance, in other words, risking the life of the organization. Would the Heavens Net Association risk their lives over something like this? Sima Cheon tilted his head. No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem likely. Someone might be using them. Who? That former Alliance Protection Regiment leader. The first person that came to mind was Baekpyo. He was currently under suspicion of possibly having the sword. From my impression of him that day, and judging by his past record, he doesn't seem like someone who would plot such a thing. Cho Byok agreed with this opinion. Gal Sarayang might have plotted it. That's possible too. Gal Sarayang was under surveillance. If he had contacted the Heavens Net Association, he would have been notified. Of course, being a seasoned veteran, he might have evaded surveillance and met with the head of the Heavens Net Association. But seeing the two earlier, it didn't seem likely. When they first met, they were genuinely surprised to see each other. He could tell it wasn't feigned surprise, and he could also sense that they hadn't met for a very long time. At that moment, a subordinate entered the office to report. The handwriting analysis confirms it's definitely written by the former alliance leader. Are you sure? Yes, they're certain. Any possibility of forgery? None at all. The analyst says it appears to have been written a few months before the former alliance leader passed away. The part mentioning martial arts was also confirmed by the elder masters in the Council of Elders to seem like it was written by the alliance leader. I see. You may go now. After the subordinate left, Sima Qian looked at Cho Biok. Cho Biok still couldn't shake off his doubts. Even if this is real, we should be suspicious of it being released at this particular time. If someone intentionally released it, it would be either Baekpyo or Gal Sarayang. They're the only two who might have kept the alliance leader's belongings. But what meaning does it have now? The important thing is that the Azura Bright King sword no longer exists in this world. The reason Sima Qian had wanted to obtain the Azura Bright King sword was to present it to Ma Bongji and gain his trust. But once it was revealed that the sword didn't exist, his interest disappeared along with it. Stop the investigation on Baekpyo. We have more important things to do. Sima Qian wasn't interested in what martial artists wanted. As he had lived his whole life, he was still looking for what Ma Bongji wanted. That evening, I was able to briefly meet Baekpyo's son, Myong-ai, who came on an errand for his mother. Say hello. This is young Master Biok. Nice to meet you. I'm Myong-ai. He was Baekpyo's 7-year-old son. With intelligent eyes, he was well-mannered for his age. Well, whose son wouldn't be well-mannered? Who does he take after to be so handsome? Your wife must be very beautiful. Baekpyo was flustered at the word sister-in-law. After all, he was just the owner of a tavern, while I was a customer and the heir of the Biok clan sword manor. When I gave a friendly smile, Baekpyo soon relaxed. A look of appreciation flashed in his eyes towards me. He was more touched because he hadn't expected it. It should have been like this in my past life. A single word, a small consideration like this moves people's hearts. Why did I live so rigidly, thinking that the authority of the alliance leader was so important? Myong-ai, always listen to your parents. When I handed the child a coin, he looked at Baekpyo, asking if it was okay to accept it. When Baekpyo nodded, the child thanked me with a bow and ran off through the back door. Baekpyo's gaze towards Myong-ai deepened. These days, I live for the joy of raising that boy. Baekpyo spent his youth protecting me. He wandered through all sorts of battlefields with me, fighting like mad. In the process, he lost countless comrades. The wounds in his heart must be deeper than the dozens of scars on his body. Wounds that will never fade. And now, after leaving the martial righteous alliance, Baekpyo is guarding my sword. He has spent his entire life protecting me and things related to me. Considering his life, what was so important about the life of an old man full of authority? What was that sword worth? So, Baekpyo, you can be happy now. Enjoy happiness to your heart's content. Now, I will protect you. 3 men entered a manor on the outskirts of Wuhan. They had different body types and ages, each with their own characteristics. The older-looking man was hairy. His sideburns covered his face, and hair was thick on the backs of his hands and arms. Another man was an enormous figure, with forearms that seemed as thick as an ordinary person's waist. The last man had an incredibly ugly face, like smashed soybeans. While they each had distinct features, one thing was similar. Their eyes were full of killing intent, a chronic bloodlust that made it seem like they could casually kill someone and then eat a meal next to the body. These were the 3 shadows, Cho Biok's 3 shadows. The person waiting for them was Cho Biok. You've come. You called all 3 of us. What's the matter? Unfortunately, the mission that required you has been cancelled. The 3 shadows showed disappointment. Then Cho Biok took out 3 or 4 100 Niang notes and gave them to them. Rest for a while, enjoying women's company. The 3 shadows' expressions immediately brightened. Don't leave Wuhan until I give orders. Cho Biok didn't send them away. While Sima Qian had dropped this matter, he still felt uneasy. He had a feeling there was something more, something hidden. So he planned to secretly find out more from Baekpyo. Of course, he didn't intend to report the results to Sima Qian. He wanted to prove to himself that his intuition wasn't wrong. As the three shadows were about to leave, one of them casually asked, "By the way, who was our original target?" "The former Alliance Protection Regiment leader." "He must be quite strong." "Strong is an understatement. Even if the three of you attack together, you won't be able to kill him." "Is he that powerful?" "What do you think the Martial Righteous Alliance's Alliance Protection Regiment is?" "They're the ones who protect the Alliance leader." "The Alliance Protection Regiment leader is the head of such people. Even I can't win in a direct confrontation. But don't worry. He has a wife and son. We can make him kneel anytime." A vile expression crossed the faces of all four men simultaneously. This was how they had lived so far, and how they had survived. Once someone's on your kill list, brother, whether it's the Alliance Protection Regiment leader or his grandfather, the result would be the same, right? After all, no one who got involved with them had survived. No matter how skilled, they always found a weakness and killed them. After they left, I revealed myself. I had been keeping a close eye on the three shadows' movements as they were coming to Wuhan. I heard their entire conversation while concealing my presence. When I heard that the order had been cancelled, I realized my plan had succeeded. But it was only half a success. That Cho Byok hadn't completely let go of his suspicions. The evidence was that he didn't send the three shadows away. The moment he mentioned Baekpyo's family, I made up my mind. To eliminate all four of them completely. It's the act I hate the most. Messing with family and harming people who don't know martial arts. And if it's Baekpyo's family? I wanted to eliminate them all right here, but I didn't. I had gone to great lengths to make them believe I had gotten rid of the Azura Bright King sword, so there was no need to create another reason for Sima Cheon to be suspicious. I will eliminate them with a time delay, entangling them in a completely different matter. You've been added to my kill list. Leave your last words on your own kill list. Chapter 66, You Don't Know, 1. After confirming that the three shadows had entered the brothel, I immediately began to move. Cho Byok had given them a large sum of money to play for a few days, so nothing would happen during that time. This was precious time for me to devise a plan to eliminate them. The one thing most needed to eliminate the three shadows and Cho Byok was this. An assassin. Who would I have killed them? In fact, I didn't need to worry much about the three shadows. They were merely Cho Byok's henchmen, so no one would care if they died. The only person who would care would die with them. The problem was Cho Byok. If Cho Byok died, Sima Cheon would investigate who killed him. At that time, there needed to be someone who could have killed him. And it had to be a villain. Because they might face retaliation from Sima Cheon. Of course, the Sima Cheon I knew wasn't the type to seek revenge. Would he shed even a single tear if Cho Byok died? I don't think so. To Sima Cheon, he was merely a disposable tool. I requested additional investigation on Cho Byok from the Wuhan branch of the Heaven's Net Association. I wanted more detailed information than the previous investigation. I asked for even the most trivial things, focusing especially on his financial status. He had casually handed out hundreds of Niang in notes to the three shadows. If this mission was cancelled, that money probably didn't come from Sima Cheon. Then where did all that money come from? Did he withdraw money he had saved in the bank? That's unlikely. I requested the information even faster than express delivery, and as a result, the cost tripled. More than half of the 10,000 Niang I received for selling the writing left by the Alliance leader went back to the Heaven's Net Association. As information flows back and forth, the same money flows back and forth. I didn't mind the cost. It was just travel money to send them to the underworld. Of course, throughout this process, I wore a human skin mask. Except when going to the Wind Tavern or returning to the Inn to sleep, I planned to wear the human skin mask from now on. As I left the Heaven's Net Association branch, I strongly felt the need for an information organization. I couldn't keep buying information with money forever. With an organization like the Heaven's Net Association, I could trust them to keep client information confidential and request information without worry, but in this world, unexpected variables always arise. To grow the clan and carry out my work in the future, an information organization was absolutely necessary. Having closely watched Gal Sarayang operate the Righteous Thought Pavilion, I knew well how difficult it was. First, most information organizations are filled with spies. Of course, managers were needed to compile their information and give orders. The soldiers of the Righteous Thought Pavilion were those managers. Of course, in the case of the Righteous Thought Pavilion, they received military support from other organizations in the Martial Righteous Alliance, so they didn't need it, but in our case, we need our own military support unit. We needed people to rescue spies if they got into danger in enemy territory. Raising spies is much more difficult than raising warriors. Because they handle information, much more confidentiality is required. In other words, the required loyalty is much higher. Moreover, we need to establish branches throughout the Central Plains, which requires enormous funds. It was still a daunting task. "You're late today?" Baekpyo greeted me with unchanged hospitality. I was busy dealing with various things. Being busy is good, isn't it? Is that so? I prefer being idle. I want to play all day. Ha ha ha. That's proof that you're still young. I laughed along with Baekpyo. So I sent word home and called for someone. It's too boring playing alone. The person I called was Gwangdu. Before coming here, after leaving the Heaven's Net Association branch, I stopped by Young Minor Faction's contact point. The contact point was where trained messenger birds and warriors managing them stayed, the very one we had set up earlier to connect Young Minor Faction and our home in Shandong. Of course, considering appearances, we couldn't place it inside the house, so it was set up externally. I sent an urgent message to Zhongyo. Of course, I used the code words we had agreed upon before. I asked him for two things. First, I asked him to send 2 trustworthy and skilled spies. Not just for this matter, but I needed spies who could act as my hands and feet for other matters in the future. Second, I asked him to send word to our home in Shandong to send Gwangdu and Gong Suchan here. I felt the need to stay here for a while after eliminating the 4 targets to see how things unfolded. I called Gwangdu here to hear about family matters and because I missed him. I had a separate task for Gong Suchan. I planned to establish a base here in Wuhan. Since creating something related to the Biok clan sword manor would attract attention, I planned to have him set up a small trading company. It will earn money and also serve as a contact point. If it were anywhere else, it might not be worth it, but this is Wuhan, where the Martial Righteous Alliance headquarters is located. This level of investment was certainly worthwhile. Baekpyo joked. If more people come, I'll be able to earn more money. And I'll be much happier. Ha ha ha. I laughed happily along with Baekpyo. Yes, even if difficult tasks keep coming, this is how to handle them one by one while laughing. At the same time, Ma Chiolgun entered the Alliance leader's quarters. He was Ma Bongjiai's 5th son and currently held the position of interim sect leader of the Heavenly Blade sect. With his tall stature and handsome face, he had an appearance befitting the heir of a prestigious family, with an air of nobility flowing from him. Perhaps because of this, it was hard to believe he was in his 40s. Ma Bongjiai was sitting on the Grand Preceptor's chair, watching Ma Chiolgun walk towards him. Ma Chiolgun stopped about 10 steps away from the Taisha chair. It was a bit far for a father and son reuniting after a long time. Have you been well? You've come. You look good. You look good too. How does it feel to be in the position above all others? There's just more work. Although the conversation flowed naturally, it somehow felt businesslike. I held Jongsu's funeral. This was the purpose of Ma Chiolgun's visit to Ma Bongjiai today. Although they were half-brothers, they were still of the same blood. You did well. I informed all the other siblings, but no one came. Ma Bongjiai silently nodded. I heard that the night market and Shandong Trading Company in Shandong were involved in Jongsu's death. Shouldn't we send someone? If we leave it like this, everyone will look down on our sect. I've already sent someone. Who did you send? As if to say it's none of your business, Ma Bongjiai didn't answer. You must be tired from the long journey. Get some rest. Ma Chiolgun didn't ask again. Yes, I'll take my leave then. As Ma Chiolgun was about to turn around after politely greeting, Ma Bongjiai called him. Gunnar. Yes. Ma Bongjiai was about to say something on his mind but swallowed his words. When do you plan to return? Since I've come all this way, I plan to meet some people and take care of a few things before leaving. I see. Ma Chiolgun bowed again and withdrew. A complex emotion filled Ma Bongjiai's eyes as he watched his son's retreating figure. Sima Qion entered the room. Although he lacked the wisdom befitting a commander-in-chief, he had an uncanny ability to read people's hearts. Especially Ma Bongjiai's mood, He could tell just by the sound of his breathing. Would you like to have a drink in the palace? Let's do that. Ma Bongji stood up. The two entered the secret passage behind the Taisha chair. It was a passage that only the martial righteous alliance leader could use. After descending a spiral staircase, there was a large room underground. It used to be Cheon Hajin's secret training room, but now it had been remodeled differently. Night luminous pearls were embedded here and there, and it was decorated with luxurious furniture and ornaments. The bed in the center was large enough for 10 people to lie down, and bright bedding with flower patterns was placed on it. This was Ma Bongji's pleasure palace. The person who remodeled this place was Sima Cheon. From a young age, he had brought all sorts of women. After becoming commander-in-chief, the first thing Sima Cheon did was to create this place. A table with alcohol was quickly set up. That boy is disrespecting me. He's been like that since he was young. How could that be? Ungrateful bastard. Although he matched Ma Bongji's mood better than anyone, he didn't join in cursing. Even though he cursed like that, Sima Cheon knew well that Ma Cheol-gun was Ma Bongji's favorite son. Because he loved him so much, it caused all sorts of misunderstandings and misinterpretations. Objectively watching from the side, most of the reasons they fought were over trivial matters. In fact, if Sima Cheon had actively intervened each time to clear up misunderstandings and soothe their hearts, the emotional distance between the two wouldn't have grown this far. But Sima Cheon didn't do that. The lonelier Ma Bongji was, the more his presence was needed. The door opened, and 3 beautiful women entered. At times like this, you should clear your mind and enjoy yourself. You. Come here. Ma Bongji seated the women he liked on either side of him. Watching Ma Bongji smile contentedly with women on both sides, Sima Cheon seated the remaining woman beside himself. With a satisfied smile, as if one wing was enough for him, he raised his cup high. Meanwhile, outside the alliance leader's quarters, 2 people were waiting for Ma Cheol-gun. One was Old Master No, one, who served as Ma Cheol-gun's advisor. He was a figure who had been with Ma Cheol-gun for a long time and was also the person Ma Cheol-gun trusted the most. The other man was someone sent down by Ma Bongji. Number 7 had been sent to Ma Jongsu, and this man was number 3. While Ma Cheol-gun's guard warriors were waiting outside the alliance leader's quarters, number 3 was able to follow this far. Did you tell him? When Old Master No asked carefully, Ma Cheol-gun shook his head and answered. I couldn't. You must tell him before we return. Ma Cheol-gun nodded. Although the moonlight was bright, his expression was extremely troubled. I climbed the hill behind the inn to train before going to bed. I started with physical training first. It was always important, but now it became even more crucial. Since the Immortal Crane's secret art was a martial art that used the entire body, basic physical strength played a much bigger role. I still couldn't understand the deep martial intent contained in the Immortal Crane's secret art. It could be seen as mere imitation. But even that alone was no ordinary power. After moving vigorously using my whole body, I felt refreshed. I felt the freshness of the new martial art and the vitality that change brings. Of course, that doesn't mean I have any desire to change my unique martial art to the Immortal Crane's secret art. My aspiration is still to achieve the realm of the Mind Sword. There are 2 reasons for practicing this Immortal Crane's secret art. The smaller reason is for practical help. How often will there be moments when the sword falls from my hand? But there might come a time when I have to fight barehanded. At that time, this Immortal Crane's secret art will save my life. The second reason is the main reason for learning the Immortal Crane's secret art. It's because of the insight I gained through the conversation with number 7. That day, number 7 said, the world's greatest wouldn't do that. They wouldn't be bound by form. It was a response to my statement that sword techniques and fist techniques don't match well. That's when I realized. Without knowing, I had been bound by something. I had become like a river that couldn't reach the sea and was stagnant. I thought that maybe I had been living thinking the river was the sea. I think this fighting technique, like fist techniques, doesn't match well with sword techniques at all. Rather, since it uses the whole body as a weapon, I thought it was even more so. It would require building unnecessary muscles all over the body instead of the smooth muscles needed for sword techniques, and as a result, movements would become sluggish. But I'm trying to prove her words that the world's greatest wouldn't be bound by such things. I had a feeling that the process of fusing these 2 martial arts would help in reaching the state of realm of the Mind Sword. Papa papa pang. My fist cut through the air, and my elbow struck an imaginary enemy fiercely. If it were real, their jaw would have been shattered as they fell. Rolling on the ground, jumping up, rushing in with the knee, then spinning and kicking. The immortal crane's secret art was truly free. The next day, I stopped by the Heaven's Net Association branch to receive information about Joe Byok. I could tell from the previous investigation that he had been involved in various incidents since his days as a wandering warrior. As I was looking for someone to pin the crime on, I discovered a surprising fact. All the people who had been involved in incidents with him were already dead. A few months later, or a few years later, they died in accidents, mysterious deaths, or suicides. Every single one of them was dead. I could tell. He had set the three shadows loose and eliminated them all. He had erased all the past that could potentially harm him. He was a devil of a man. Secondly, I could learn new facts from the financial part that I had asked them to focus on. His spending was not small. For example, when he drank at brothels, he drank at the most high-end ones, with the most famous courtesans by his side. It was a level of spending that couldn't be managed just as Sima Chion's right-hand man. He had a source of money somewhere. I had a feeling that if I could just find that, I might be able to resolve this matter cleanly. When money is involved, there's always a plausible story. As I was walking through the marketplace after leaving the branch, a wind blew from somewhere. The wind was cold. I could feel that autumn was ending and winter was coming. It's going to get cold soon. I want to live as a sage king, but this martial world keeps trying to make me an Azura.